So let's get right into it. So the Trump administration just pulled up to Los Angeles and pulled the plug on federal money going to the city's main homeless agency. Now, this is after they had already received $1 billion, that's with a B, ladies and gentlemen, over the past 5 years, and basically nothing to show for it. Homelessness doubled while the funding tripled, and they couldn't even prove that a number of units that were supposed to exist actually existed. And so one thing that's being made clear about this move is that taxpayer dollars are done being used for fraud and abuse. And so as always, ladies and gentlemen, first smash that thumbs up button if you do enjoy the content. That's the best way to let me know. For more content, subscribe, stay locked. Let's go ahead and jump right into it.
High-profile White House crackdown on taxpayer-funded homelessness programs is happening here in LA. The Trump administration demanding more accountability and transparency from groups that receive federal funding. Now, 2 cabinet secretaries holding a news conference here today, and one of the things they announced that they're cutting off federal funding for LA Homeless Services, or LAHSA.
Certainly lots of changes announced today. First things first, they say they are looking to fund what they're calling real results. They were also very candid and clear in that they're looking to bring funding back to faith-based organizations like the one that's running this Dream Center here behind us in Echo Park. And also, they announced that they will be cutting funding from LAHSA. Unclear what that is going to look like immediately, only that funding could come back to LAHSA only if there is full transparency and full accountability. HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and HUD Secretary Scott Turner saying they're cutting off federal funding to organizations it accuses of contributing to what officials call the drug-fueled homeless industrial complex. Kennedy and Turner argue taxpayer money should be tied to measurable results and that organizations receiving federal funding should be held accountable for how those dollars are spent.
Yeah, and so what the Trump administration is doing right here is they're cracking down on these agencies who they're supposed to be serving the homeless. That's what they're supposed to be doing, but they're not being held accountable. They're negligent and they don't even know where the money's going, ladies and gentlemen. I just want you to take a listen to this real quick. In August of 2023, LAHSA could not even determine whether it used funding to pay for empty hotel rooms because it failed to record when individuals exited transitional motel housing. And so what you're talking about here are things as simple as basic bookkeeping, keeping simple records with taxpayer dollars being used, and they seem to not even know where the money's gone, supposedly, right?
And part of that, they say, is making sure that every dollar that is going into these organizations is also going to people that need it most.
They will not receive another cent of American taxpayer money until they can account for every single dollar. Money, as we all know and all agree, does not grow on trees. Taxpayers understand this. American people understand this. We must and we shall be good stewards.
The objective is not to manage homelessness indefinitely. It's to help people move out of homelessness into productive lives and into connection to community. Compassion requires us to ask whether a program works, whether money reaches the people who need it, and whether those people are becoming healthier, safer, and more independent.
Yeah, so there's fraud going on. That's obvious, no matter how much they try to deny it. No one's being held accountable. You can thank the leadership in the city, the leadership in the state. Democrat ran basically through and through in California. And so now you have the Trump administration stepping in. And so President Trump sent the right man for the job when he sent HUD Secretary Scott Turner. And I want you to take a listen to this. Check this out.
Year after year, hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars were funneled to LAHSA with little accountability and zero results. The LA Continuum of Care, led by LAHSA, had received $1 billion in taxpayer dollars over the last 5 years. That's $1 billion over the last 5 years with no accountability and zero results. And despite receiving more federal homelessness funding than any other jurisdiction in our nation, LA remains the epicenter of the nation's drug-fueled homelessness crisis. During that same decade, that homelessness in LA doubled. HUD funding to LA nearly tripled. How many know that's a problem? Funding doubled. The amount of homelessness tripled. We got to run a new play. That play does not work. LASA could not verify the existence of 2,300 housing units. But as good stewards of taxpayer dollars, we have cut LASA's funding off from receiving another dollar. We have zero tolerance for this abuse.
And so a crackdown needs to happen because, ladies and gentlemen, you need to, if you don't know, you should know how they handle the homelessness issue in California, individuals who are addicted to drugs, and how they help basically to enable these individuals to remain on drugs, ladies and gentlemen. We covered this and we went over this before on this channel, how literally there are nonprofit organizations, there are agencies in the city of Los Angeles, in California, who will hand out basically free drug kits, and in this case, a brown bag that contains the drug paraphernalia. And that's something that the Secretary of HUD, Scott Turner, explained here. Take a listen.
Something I want to show everybody, and I learned about, this is a bag that I learned that they're giving our homeless neighbors with American taxpayer dollars. And in this bag, when you go in here, now we're talking about helping the most vulnerable people in our country, a continuum of care. This is not a continuum of care that I'm looking for. This is drug paraphernalia that's in this bag. This brown bag that's handed to people, homeless people, that are addicted to drugs, that have mental illness, hard-working people's money. People are putting these together with their hands to give to people that are already addicted. Has nothing to do with politics. Has everything to do with caring for people properly. This is not the continuum of care that I'm looking for. It's not the continuum of care that Bobby is looking for. This is keeping people addicted and giving them a way to stay addicted, which I'll all agree. That has to be over. That's done.
Wow, ladies and gentlemen. So out in Los Angeles, in California for the state that matter, they pass out drug use kits to give to drug abusers so that way they can keep getting high. All they need is the drugs. And take a listen to this. It says, many of the distributing self-help kits contain clean needles to reduce transmission of diseases, but there are often other items inside those harm reduction kits critics argue that enable bad behavior. This is aluminum foil. This is a lot of it. What is it used for? This is used so that they could put their fentanyl in here. And then they burn it and they smoke it through a straw. But let's go ahead and jump into one more clip with the HUD Secretary, Scott Turner, and a reporter tried smearing Doge's effort at HUD, and he had no BS. And so I want you to just take a listen to how he answers this reporter's question. Take a listen.
How does HUD keep up all of its existing commitments with all the cuts that are coming?
Cuts like what?
I asked Henry Cisneros for a question for you, and he said, how do they keep up the existing commitments? How are their existing commitments supposed to thrive and prosper with all of the cuts that are being made?
That's hearsay. We have an $83 billion budget. Is that a big budget to you?
You guys were hit by Doge.
Stewardship is the issue. It's not the money, it's stewardship. My job is to steward over that money. HUD has not missed one beat, not one. Matter of fact, what we've done has been more efficient and accomplished more with what we have. I hear it all the time. But the real story is, it's not cuts, it's stewardship. And what you see now is faithful stewardship of American taxpayer dollars and actually putting the money to where the money is supposed to go to accomplish the mission that HUD was created to accomplish.
Exactly. And the biggest lie that the left tries to make is that it's the cuts that are costing and hurting people. No. It's not the cuts. It's, as he said, how are you using the funds? You can throw as much money you want at a situation, but if that money isn't being used properly, as we see, if it's not being accounted for, you don't even know what it's being used for, then it doesn't matter if you're spending $1 million or $1 billion or what the number is. It's all going to just basically be flushed down the toilet, ladies and gentlemen. We can figure that one out pretty easily. When there's just reckless fraud, waste, and abuse happening and no accountability and no means of actually keeping track of how this money is spent, where's it going, who is it going to, how much of it they're receiving, that's a problem. And this is why I find it hilarious and just absolutely insane when you hear the left saying things like, yeah, we want more of your taxpayer dollars to provide more government programs. It's like, you can't even manage the ones that you have currently with the funds and do it in an efficient and effective way. And you think that you should be in charge of more taxpayer dollars? So what? You can mess up more with the money? I mean, fix what you already have before you start asking for more is kind of the basic understanding that should be expected here. But let's go ahead and jump into this next story, where another state that has fraud issues going on, Minnesota, and take a listen to this, where you have Peggy Flanagan. She just won the nomination for the Democratic Party in the U.S. Senate in Minnesota now. Now, she was one of the individuals in charge of overseeing the tax dollars and how they were being spent in Minnesota when all this fraud and abuse of taxpayer dollars was going down. And she just won the Democratic nomination. And so you see her right here. She enjoys in her free time cosplaying as a Muslim woman, a white liberal woman dressing up. You see her right here wearing her Protect Trans Kids shirt. Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, absolutely ridiculous. But I want to get into this clip because she was actually confronted on this issue as far as Minnesota, and was asked about ignoring the billions in fraud under her watch. And so take a listen to this.
Do you take any accountability for the fraud that has happened under your administration's watch in your state?
I'll say a couple things. First of all, I'm grateful to have Congresswoman Craig's support in this race. We know the most important thing that we need to do is to beat Michelle Tafoya this fall. She understands that. What I would also say is that fraud of any kind is completely unacceptable. As you know, someone who ran an organization that served children and families, the fact that taxpayer dollars would be stolen is horrific. What I would also say is that what I hear from Minnesotans is that they are done with the corruption and grift that is happening under Donald Trump. We see the fact that he got rid of 17
So clearly you have issues with Donald Trump. I just want to keep it on track here. What about the fraud in your state? Do you take any accountability?
It's unacceptable. And there's been work that has been done to stop fraud, prevent it from happening in the first place.
Yeah, so let me go to translate that for you right there. She's not looking to take any accountability for any of the fraud that happened under her watch. Matter of fact, if it wasn't for individuals like Nick Shirley, who really blew up the whole spot as far as exposing the level of fraud that was going on. I mean, they had an investigation that was taking place with the Feeding Our Future scandal, but when Nick Shirley blew the lid off of the entire thing with the Quality Layering Center, and it really just got exposed and became national, listen, it messed up everything over there, because now the scammers, the fraudsters, they were under heavy surveillance, and we saw how that ended up going as far as businesses and shops shutting down, basically. But let's go ahead and continue, because there is more coming from the Democratic nominee in Minnesota for the Senate, and she is a far left progressive. She may not consider herself a democratic socialist, but nonetheless, I mean, she's just as bad, ladies and gentlemen, and dangerous. And take a listen to this. Minnesota Democrat Senate candidate says gender affirming care shouldn't have a minimum age. And so take a listen to this.
Minnesota law does not set a minimum age for gender affirming care. Do you believe there should be one?
I mean, I believe that what we need to do is make sure that people have access to health care. Frankly, that's one of the reasons, why I've run so hard on Medicare for all and making sure that we get rid of
gender affirming care and an age? Should there be an age limit?
I think gender affirming care is part of healthcare. People need
Should there
access
be an age limit for it?
To healthcare. I think our law as it stands is a good law. I've supported it in the past, but I think the real question that people are struggling with is, if I go to the doctor, how am I going to pay that bill? When folks have $16,000, $17,000 deductibles, it's untenable for people. So that is the issue surrounding healthcare that I hear from Minnesotans all across the state.
Okay, so you support the law as is, no limit. So if a 10-year-old wanted it, you would be okay with that?
Let me be clear, Pam.
Yeah.
I want to be clear that these, medical decisions absolutely should be made between a family and their doctor. Period. Full stop.
I mean, listen, she says that as if it still makes it a good idea. Well, if the parents say it's okay, as if, I mean, listen, you can't trust some of these parents, if we're being honest nowadays anyway, these far left liberal loonies. They'll let their kid be a kangaroo if that's what the kids say they want to be. Mommy, can I transition to become a zebra? Sure, little Timmy. Go right ahead. So I don't really rock with the whole, well, it's a family decision to go ahead and change your kid's entire sex because that's what the kid want and the parent is dumb enough to allow it to happen. How about we just say, hey, as long as you're a minor, you don't make those type of decisions. When you become an adult, if you want to go ahead and wreck your life and go ahead and do something like that, have at it. Other than that, and taxpayer dollars will not be used for it. Other than that, you're a minor, doesn't matter what type of consent you get. It's not happening. How about we just start right there? One more clip from this Minnesota Democrat, Peggy Flanagan, as she calls to abolish ICE, but can't answer what she would replace it with. Check this out.
I'm talking about if they were abolished, how would it work practically? For like a criminal in your state who's here illegally, how would that work practically? Would you think, would that person be arrested and deported, and what agency would do it? I'm just wondering how that would work.
We need violent criminals to be held to account, and we need an immigration system. Donald Trump's ICE is completely broken, and it is not the answer. And again, I would just say, while the national media may have moved on, we are still recovering from Operation Metro Surge here. And the fear, the chaos, it's outrageous. And I think the cruelty is the point.
She doesn't have an answer on what she's going to replace ICE with because they don't want to replace ICE. These far left Democrats have made it abundantly clear what they want to do. They want to grant citizenship to individuals who are here in this country illegally. And so you don't need a replacement for an agency when you're just going to grant citizenship to all those individuals who that agency is after removing. And we'll see how that race turns out. She's going against Michelle Tafoya, the Republican candidate, come November. Things are heating up. Wow, it's going to be really interesting. See how things go. But let me know what your thoughts are down below in the comments. Appreciate when you guys chime in. Don't forget, smash that thumbs up. You enjoy the content. For more, subscribe to the channel. And as always, until next time.